The House will come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance this morning will be led by Lily and Gemma Kohler from Brown International School in Denver.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Kohler, please take the roll. Representative Becker. Representative Becker. Who? Becker. Present. Buck. Buckner. Conti. Corum. Court. Del Grosso. Dorr. Duran. Everett. Exum. Fields. Fisher. Foote. Garcia. Gardner. Giroux. Janal. Hamner. Holbert. Hollinghorse. Humphrey. Joshi. Kagan. Krafttharp. Labuda. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lebsock. Representative Lebsock. Absent. Lee. May. McCann. McLaughlin. McNulty. Melton. Mitch Bush. Moreno. Representative Moreno. Representative Lebsock is present. I got him. Moreno. Moreno excused. Murray. Navarro is excused. Nordberg. Pabon. Pabon's here somewhere. Peniston. Pedersen. Primavera. Priola. Rankin. Rosenthal. Ryden. Sane. Salazar. Schaefer. Scott. Singer. Sonnenberg. Stevens. Swam. Zabo. Tyler. Vigil. Waller. Representative Waller. Absent. Williams. Representative Waller is present. Wilson. Wright. Young. Hello, Speaker Ferrandino. I'll change it, but it's 64 and 1. Navarro. Yeah. Yep. It's Buckner. Representative Moreno. Will you get Buckner?
Hey, Young, can you do the journal?
Never mind.
The journal, can you do that? With 64 members present, one excused, a quorum is present. Representative Young. Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the reading
24th.
of the journal for yesterday, because I don't know the
April
date.
24th.
April 24th be dispensed with and approved as corrected by our wonderful chief clerk.
You've heard the motion. Seeing all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No! The motion is adopted. Representative Buckner is fined $5. Members, please return to your desks. We are going to go into considerations of memorials. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Memorial 1005.
House Memorial 1005 by Representative Singer, memorializing former Representative Jack McCroskey.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. I move House Bill 1005 and
House
ask
Memorial?
House Memorial 1005, and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas, our respected former colleague, Jack McCroskey, a former member of the Colorado House of Representatives, departed this life on January 8, 2014, at the age of 88. And whereas Representative McCroskey was born on June 26, 1925, in Dallas, Texas, and graduated from W.H. Adamson High School in Dallas. And whereas Representative McCroskey earned a bachelor's degree in economics from Southern Methodist University, graduating in 1956, and later completed a Ph.D. in economics from Indiana University. And whereas Representative McCroskey moved to Denver in 1966 with his wife Betty to become a professor of economics and finance at the University of Denver. And whereas first elected in 1975, Representative McCroskey served 4 terms in the House of Representatives. And whereas in the course of his legislative career, Representative McCroskey lent his expertise to an array of issues as he served on committees as varied as Finance, Health, Environment, Welfare and Institutions, Judiciary, State Affairs, Transportation and Energy, Air Pollution, and Regional Transportation District Oversight. And whereas in 1982, along with Speaker Bev Bledsoe, Representative McCroskey was part of a bipartisan group to reform and simplify Colorado's property tax system, which reform is now part of Colorado's Constitution and statutes. And whereas as a legislator, McCroskey brought to the table his expertise as an economics professor, and he advocated for the particular needs of urbanites in the property tax process, promoting fairness for homeowners and for those residing in multifamily dwellings. And whereas Representative McCroskey introduced bills to eliminate the sales tax on food, eliminate the income tax on savings, interest, and dividends, and establish district-wide election of the Regional Transportation District's Board of Directors, all measures which eventually became law. And whereas Representative McCroskey had a wide-ranging interest in legislation that centered on financial, transportation, and equality issues, garnering broad bipartisan support as evidenced by the many co-sponsors from both parties on his bills. And whereas Representative McCroskey fought for the funding of public libraries, the investigation of insurance costs, limitations on the influence of lobbyists, and many other issues. And whereas Representative McCroskey believed in not only the state government's capability to benefit Coloradans, but also in the need to periodically review the efficacy of state agencies, a process now known as Sunset Review. And whereas Representative McCroskey played a significant role in the development of the RTD that Coloradans continue to enjoy and rely upon today. And whereas Representative McCroskey was at the forefront of the movement to replace RTD's appointed board of directors with an elected board. And whereas Representative McCroskey served as director of RTD for 12 years, during which he helped create Denver's first light rail line. And whereas Representative McCroskey, who rode the bus to work, advocated for equal access to public transportation, ensuring that all buses were accessible to wheelchair riders, a position that was, at the time, voluntary and largely without precedent. And whereas the wisdom of Representative McCroskey's vision spread as other cities began to offer wheelchair-accessible public transportation options and eventually became a mainstream concept at the national level with the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And whereas following Representative McCroskey's distinguished legislative service, he remained active in local and state affairs as a senior fellow with the Independence Institute, where one of his accomplishments included the defeat of the continuation of the tourism tax and helping disadvantaged students gain financial access to independent universities. And whereas although Representative McCroskey retired from elected office, he continued to influence the course of events in Colorado in ways that will have a long-lasting impact on future generations. And whereas Representative McCroskey was preceded in death by his wife Betty and his son Byron, and is survived by his daughter Jacqueline, son Thomas, and many grandchildren. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado that in the death of Representative Jack McCroskey, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the House of Representatives, do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served his state well and faithfully. Be it further resolved that copies of this memorial be sent to Representative Jack McCroskey's children.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and please be seated, members. Jack McCroskey represented Colorado's House District 11, and it looked a little different back in those days. House District 11 covered South Denver, a little closer to where Representative Rosenthal's district is now, as opposed to today's House District 11 of Longmont, Lyons, and Allens Park, which I guess for today's purposes we'll just call North Denver to bring everyone together. I really want to thank his family for being here today and taking the time out of their day to help us remember him. And also I want to do a special recognition for Representative Frank DeFilippo, who could not be here today, but spent many phone calls and emails with me remembering what Representative McCroskey did as a family man and as a state representative and as an RTD director. But before I go any further and before I forget, I would move L001 to make sure that we correctly remember the people that helped in the drafting of this amendment and that they have copies sent to them.
The amendment is properly displayed.
And I ask for a aye vote on Amendment L001.
Is there any objection to taking a voice vote? Seeing none, we'll proceed in that matter. All those in favor of L001 say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I never knew Mr. McCroskey, and so most of my experience with him was through his works, and we have all been touched by his works if we've ever jumped on a bus, taken the light rail, complained about the light rail as we do in Longmont. All of those things are in large part, if not in all part, due to Representative McCroskey's work. Westward defined Jack McCroskey as a man of many opinions, some pungent and some pure acid. It may be best summed up in my least favorite RTD director when Mr. McCroskey said that Mr. Cal Marsala hid a limited imagination and mediocre skills under a bushel of political spin and personal hype. Words could never be better said. Representative Miller Hudson, who used to sit in the back row where Representative Ryden and McCann sit now, commented that when the two of them were first sitting back there, Mr. Hudson, or Representative Hudson, said although he was an unexpected winner of the primary, he wasn't aware that he had been singled out for exile in the back row until Representative McCroskey made it clear that our Democratic leadership, quote, doesn't like me one damn bit. So the acerbic remarks were just the tip of the iceberg, though. He was far more complicated and far more conscientious than those words really did sum up. He was a fiscal conservative, but definitely a social liberal. As you heard in the memorial, he actually served with the Independence Institute, a place that I was only able to visit once, and then I think they ran me out. When we talk about, when I started to look for similarities between what I deal with in my House District 11 and what he dealt with in his House District 11, I came to realize that we're actually dealing with many of the same issues, if not the exact same issues. He talked about advocating for one of the strongest severance taxes in the nation to match Wyoming and Montana, something that we deal with here today. He talked about making sure that we had sales tax relief for food items so families could afford their food. And while I sum up my experience with the legislation that we've done on marijuana in the alliterative words of making sure that we keep marijuana out of the hands of kids, criminals, and cartels, truly he preceded me and did a better job about talking about severance tax and tax relief for food by saying we should tax minerals and not milk. And you can see in the picture there he is holding a mineral and milk. I'll let you guess which one's which. He rode the bus every day to the Capitol. And after his time here in the legislature, he did go on to serve as an RTD director, and continued his battles there with the RTD board to make sure that we could actually start laying the foundation for our transportation future here in Colorado. A lot of people don't know that he really helped start what was then called the Metro Area Connector, which is now known as our Fast Tracks and Light Rail service. But without his advocacy at the state level, at the local level, and getting the federal dollars to get this started, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I believe if we would still be here, we'd probably have our light rail up to Longmont by now. The last interesting connection I found between Representative McCroskey and myself was, you know, he had believed in strong free speech rights. And he would submit memos that were somewhat acerbic, as you heard in my previous comments and quotes. But members of that board would not allow those memos to be distributed, and he ended up suing the RTD board, and he was represented by the all-time liberal Sean Mitchell. So you can certainly see that party lines didn't mean anything to him. Borders didn't mean anything to him. We were all Coloradans. We all fought for the same things. We all fought for he fought for families. He fought for transportation. He fought for tax fairness. And ultimately, he started the curve when we talk about Americans with Disabilities Act. Before the Americans with Disabilities Act even came into effect, he stood up there and he made sure that every bus in the RTD district was wheelchair accessible. Something that we don't even think about now, but it's almost unthinkable to imagine that people didn't have the same access that we do today, but without his work, we wouldn't be there. So he got us quite far, and now we have, I know I have a responsibility to step even further in Representative McCroskey's shadow to do House District 11 proud, even if it's moved a little further north. And with that, I renew my motion for House Memorial 1005.
Representative Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in strong support of this memorial. Jack McCroskey was a great man. I actually got to know Jack through my involvement, surprisingly, with RTD. Many of you probably don't even remember this or may have forgotten it, but back in the early 80s, sometime in there, I'm not even sure myself, RTD went on strike for a week or two. And the predictions were that the city was going to come to a grinding stop. To the amazement, you know, it was just going to be gridlock. Well, to the amazement of most observers, and actually this is really kind of where I trace my political involvement, it didn't do a thing. RTD was gone, and traffic didn't really change. And as a result of my observation of what went on there, I ended up writing what became a full-page editorial in the Denver Post calling for the privatization of RTD. And, you know, I made a variety of arguments, but one of them was that basically RTD was a conspiracy between wealthy downtown capitalists who wanted to get people down to their buildings downtown and big government. And, you know, that's sort of beside the point. The point I want to make with Jack was he saw the article, obviously, and he got in touch with me. And he obviously had some bones to pick with the RTD himself. And so he was so gracious to me. I remember on at least one occasion, he invited me to their home. And it was a small, one of those little small, I think 2-story blonde brick bungalows, I think maybe on South Washington near Alameda. very attractive, nice house, relatively close to the Capitol. And we talked about RTD issues. And so it doesn't surprise me that he became involved with the Independence Institute, given his skepticism of what was going on there. And I doubt that any of us remember this, and he reminded me of this, that in fact, when RTD, whatever it was called, the Denver Tramway System, which was a private monopoly back then, it was going under back in the, early to mid-'70s, it was going under because people weren't using it. And so we had this ballot measure in the RTD district to raise taxes to resurrect it. And part of that promise that was made for that original RTD tax was not only would we have a bus system, we would also have a light rail system. And Jack reminded me of that. Well, guess what? We got some buses, we never got the light rail. And Jack, I think that upset Jack. He knew the promises that had been made about that first tax increase to support RTD, and those promises were never kept. And of course, he did play a key part in bringing in the Southwest line. While he was exactly how he did that, but I know he played an important role in that, and Representative Fisher pointed that out. But he saw what was going on with light rail in Denver, and again, he wrote a book. It was called Light Rail and Heavy Politics. And I had kind of lost touch with Jack, and then not quite sure how, don't remember, but I heard about his book, and so I must have given Jack a call and said, well, let's have coffee or lunch or something. And I think it was terrible. He wanted me to read his book, and I said, well, okay, great, I'll buy lunch and you give me your book or something. So let's do a little deal here or something. But anyway, he'd written this book, and he was upset about what was going on with light rail because it was so politically charged, and it was become so expensive, and it's no surprise. Here he was, a Democrat who joined the Independence Institute, and at one point I was very active with the Independence Institute as well on this very issue, light rail and RTD. You know, I want to make one or two more observations. You know, and I really appreciate the fact that he recognized the point of public transit. Its first and foremost job should be to help those people who are transit dependent. And I think he did that with making buses wheelchair accessible. That's important because those people don't have any other way to get around. And I frankly feel that that's what government should be doing, helping people who can't help themselves. But instead, we have this gargantuan light rail system, again, to get wealthy suburbanites to downtown Denver, whatever. And finally, I want to make a point about unpopular speech. I wish I was as brave as Jack McCroskey was. I read a blog entry this morning about unpopular speech. And somebody right now, actually it's a rancher out in Nevada who's being criticized for something he's been doing out in Nevada. We're all aware of the situation. And some politician down in Arizona said, well, I might not agree with him, but here's the great thing about this country. We have a First Amendment. And if the First Amendment is not meant to protect popular speech, and Jack knew it. And he not only knew it, he was willing to stand up for it and file a lawsuit because his speech was not popular. And I admire Jack McCroskey. Frankly, he had more courage than I do. I'm more easier, as I'm sure we're all aware. It's easier to kind of sit back and not say anything. Don't say anything unpopular, but that's the point of the First Amendment. It's not to protect popular speech. It's to give us all the right to say unpopular things, and regardless of what other people think about it. So I really heartily support this Memorial Day. I'm sorry to say I wasn't aware that Jack had passed away. I wish I'd been able to go to his funeral. He was a great man. Representative Fisher, I really appreciate your running this memorial, although I'm a little surprised a guy from Boulder's doing it. It would have been a little bit more appropriate from somebody from Denver, but whatever, that doesn't really matter. But again, I really appreciate your time and a great memorial, and Jack was a great man. Thank you very much.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Singer, for bringing this resolution, and thank you for your comments, Representative Swam. I knew Jack McCroskey. I first met him when he was a state representative here in this body. And as was said in the resolution, he contributed a great deal to this body and to the policies of the state of Colorado. He had a huge impact on many things that we still benefit from today, the tax base, both relative to sales tax and property tax. We benefit from what he accomplished here. He was an intellectual, I'd say absolutely brilliant, independent, very independent. I don't think he voted straight party in this body at all. He was passionate about everything that he believed in. And I would describe him, Representative Swam, as a really good liberal, but a very fiscally conservative one. And so I think it's just fine that he sort of bridges the gap between me, who really admired him a lot and everything he did, and you. And I was privileged to hear him many times debate here on the floor. He loved to argue, so he's very well suited for this body, and he did it very well. And I was also privileged to do that personally with him several times. And I would correct some, what I think may be a misconception from what you heard in his resolution, although he was the director of RTD when the major light rail systems were put together. But he was a strong supporter of the bus. He really believed that was the first mass transit approach that should be implemented in this metropolitan area that needed mass transit. We had several lively discussions early on in the 1980s when we had the first tax initiatives on light rail about the cost effectiveness and the effectiveness of light rail, and he was not on that side. But what he did do, and he was not necessarily a great supporter of RTD. He was both one of its great critics and then one of its great supporters. And he contributed a tremendous amount to our mass transit system in this metropolitan area because he did not buy the political arguments all the time. He wanted to see the facts. He wanted to make it work. And he did to a large extent. He did that. So I remember Jack very fondly. I'm in strong support of this resolution. Thank you very much for bringing it.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Crowell will please open the machine and members proceed to vote on adoption of House Memorial 1005. Representative Buckner, Murray, and Stevens. Representative Stevens excused. Representative Buckner and Stevens fined $5. Close the machine. With 63 aye votes, 0 no votes, 2 excused, and 0 absent, House Memorial 1005 is adopted. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I move that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors for House Memorial 1005. Representative Singer.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. And more than a few years ago, the Colorado Statesman had a picture with Mr. McCroskey's family sitting in or standing in the back row there, and with a young baby. And it said, "Please, please, please tell Representative McCroskey he has a beautiful young baby." But those folks have grown up now, and so I want you to join me in welcoming several people today. Daughter-in-law Marilyn McCroskey, granddaughter Marissa McCroskey, and great-granddaughter Tenley Morning.
Representative Singer.
And one last thing also for Representative Swam and other members. Representative Singer is the bald man with the beard. Representative Fisher is the bald man to be feared.
Very well put, Representative Singer. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Joint Memorial 4.
Senate Joint Memorial 4 by Senator Balmer, also Representative Holbert, concerning memorializing former Senator Frank Kemp.
Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Joint Memorial 4 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas, our respected former colleague, Frank Kemp, a past member of the Colorado General Assembly, departed this life on April 8, 2013 at the age of 91. And whereas Senator Kemp was born in Denver, Colorado on May 10, 1921. And whereas in 1942, Senator Kemp graduated from Yale University, where he played varsity football and rugby. And whereas Senator Kemp served in the United States Marine Corps during World War II and was awarded 2 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star, a Soldier's Medal, a Gold Star, and 2 Purple Hearts for numerous acts of bravery and selflessness. And whereas after sustaining a serious shrapnel injury in Okinawa, Japan in 1945, Senator Kemp returned to the United States and underwent months of rigorous rehabilitation before joining the football coaching staff at the U.S. Naval Academy. And whereas Senator Kemp returned to Denver in 1947 to work for the Great Western Sugar Company and later co-founded the successful land and livestock company Etchepare and Kemp. And whereas in 1951, Senator Kemp married Polly Wilson, and in later years they became the proud parents of Frank and Hovey and the proud grandparents of Matthew and Wilson. And whereas Senator Kemp was elected to the Colorado House of Representatives in 1952 and served 3 terms. And whereas Senator Kemp was elected to the Colorado Senate in 1967 and served 1 term. And whereas, among other appointments, Senator Kemp served on the Agriculture and Livestock Committee, as Vice Chair of the Finance Committee, and as Chair of the Business Affairs and Labor Committee. And whereas Senator Kemp was instrumental in the legislation that allowed for the founding of Metropolitan State University of Denver. And whereas Senator Kemp was a dedicated community leader and served on many local boards, including the Colorado Cattle Feeders Association, the Colorado State Historical Society, and St. Joseph's Hospital. And whereas Senator Kemp was known for his integrity, generosity of spirit, and commitment to service. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that in the death of Frank Kemp, the people of the State of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and an outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served his state well and faithfully. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint memorial be sent to Senator Kemp's wife, Polly Kemp, his sons, Frank Kemp and Hovey Kemp, and his grandsons, Matthew Kemp and Wilson Kemp.
Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, please be seated. A few days ago, we heard from former Governor Lamb about his recollection and experience of coming to the well and remembering colleagues, and that as the years progressed by, that the classes of people that he served with here become smaller and smaller. I believe that former Senator Kemp, at the age of 91, may have outlived all of his classmates. I'd like to share with you a couple of things that I found on the internet that talked about his service in the military. He did graduate from the Yale University in 1942 as a member of the varsity football and rugby teams. And before graduation, he joined, not drafted, but enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He attended the officers training program in Quantico, Virginia, and then was transferred to San Diego, and later to the Solomon Islands, where he became part of the 4th Regiment, 4th Marines, a company commander in the famous 1st Marine Raider Division. Over the next 3 years, he participated in battles of New Georgia, Guam, where he was elevated to captain, and Okinawa. In July 1943, he received the Silver Star for gallantry in action. And it was said that he aggressively led his company in furious exchange of rifle fire with superior forces with such success that heavy casualties were inflicted on the enemy, and he drove them from 3 defensive positions. He was awarded 2 Bronze Stars, including one for heroic achievement in action against the enemy in Guam in 1944, and displaying complete disregard for his personal safety despite heavy enemy fire. He received the Gold Star in lieu of a 2nd Purple Heart. As the memorial recognized, he came back to Denver and recovered. He worked for the Great Western Sugar Company and later moved to Grass Range, Montana, and participated in the cattle industry. But coming back to Colorado, Representative and Senator Kemp then ran successfully and served in the Colorado House and in the Colorado Senate. And as the memorial observed, I think particular interest to Representative Duran, Senator Kemp ran legislation that founded what we know today as Metropolitan State University. At 91, I think Senator Kemp probably has outlived his class, and there are not family members or former colleagues, governors here to remember him. But in preparing for this memorial this morning and thinking about what I would have to say, I was again drawn to former Governor Lamb's words. And thinking someday, maybe 50 years from now, as I am today, a representative that's born today might be remembering you or me or any of us. And the question is, in your work here and our work here, do we seek to plant the shallow seeds of flowers that will bloom quickly and then go away? Or might we find that rare opportunity to plant an acorn? And decades from now, when we're remembered, that there would be a tree planted and growing strongly here in Colorado like Metropolitan State University. I wish that there were family and friends and colleagues here to remember Senator Kemp, but I'm honored to stand here and offer this memorial. Mr. Speaker, thank you for this time, and members, I ask for your support of Senate Joint Memorial 4.
Seeing no further discussion, the question for the House of the passage of Senate Joint Memorial 4. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Becker and Williams. Representative Williams, there she is. Close the machine. With 63 aye votes, 0 no votes, 2 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Joint Memorial 4 is passed. Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Kemp served his family, his state, and his nation with distinction. I ask, therefore, that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors to Senate Joint Memorial 4. Thank you, Representative Holbert. Message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate.
Remainder of the message from the Senate will be printed in the Journal. Introduction of resolutions.
Senate Joint Resolution 28 by Senator Kerr, also Representatives Kraft, Tharp, and Giroux, concerning celebration of Day Without Hate 2014.
Madam Majority Leader or Mr. Assistant Majority Leader? Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we suspend the rules for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 28.
Seeing no objection, the House will suspend the rules for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 28. Yeah, the code rule is relaxed for the resolution. It'll be, once we're done with the resolution, the code rule is not relaxed. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 28.
SJR 28 by Senator Kerr, also Representatives Kraft, Tharp, and Giroux, concerning celebration of Day Without Hate 2014.
Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Joint Resolution 028 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas, in May 2007, following the tragedy at Virginia Tech University, a group of Stanley Lake High School students founded Day Without Hate, a student-led grassroots organization that promotes nonviolence, unity, and respect in schools. And whereas last year more than 120,000 students in 250 schools, 10 universities, 14 states, and 4 countries set aside the last Friday of April to celebrate Day Without Hate, committing themselves to upholding the values of the organization and refusing to live in fear in their own schools. And whereas the Colorado community holds the responsibility to foster an environment of tolerance throughout our diverse community. And whereas by publicly acknowledging and celebrating Day Without Hate, the state of Colorado, in association with Day Without Hate, stands with our schools and our youth to promote a culture of nonviolence through embracing our differences to build a better and brighter future for all of our current and future residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, acknowledge the tireless work of Day Without Hate, recognize the necessity of promoting awareness of nonviolence, respect, and unity within our educational system, and proclaim April 25th, 2014 to be Day Without Hate in the state of Colorado. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Governor John Hickenlooper, the Jefferson County Day Without Hate Committee, and the Colorado Congressional Delegation.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. So, Day Without Hate, as Mr. Kohler just said, was started by a group of students at Stanley Lake High School in my district, high school in Ward's district, who, after Virginia Tech, said, what can we do? What can we do to make a difference? What can we do to make a change? And so, from 2007 until now, this day is recognized in over 250 schools, 10 universities, 14 states, and 4 countries. And this is spreading because this isn't about disagreeing, members. This isn't about, having, that we have disagreements or we have different philosophies. This is about that there's a common unity. This is about we're not going to hate. We're not going to be haters. We're going to have a bond, and we are going to come together, and we're not going to explode in violence. We're not going to explode through our hatred. We're going to make a change every day. And I make the commitment that I will learn from these students who have come to us, who have said enough, who have said something has to change. We need to make a difference. And for those of you that are joining me today and joining our students today and joining over 250 schools, 14 states, 4 countries today in saying it's going to be different. We're going to make a difference. I want to say thank you.
Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, 12 students and 1 teacher started this at Stanley Lake High School in 2007, and it was an incredible venture. Currently, CU, UNC, CSU, University of Virginia, DU, Wheat Ridge High School, Columbine High School, Stanley Lake, as I mentioned before, and Dakota Ridge High School all participating in this. The states that participate are Colorado, Kansas, Minnesota, California, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Texas, New York, Oklahoma, Virginia, Michigan, Wyoming, and Nebraska. As a parent who had children in Mullen High School at the time of Columbine, and as a representative who has dealt with tragedy within a district, as all of you have in one way or another, I applaud the group. They have a saying, one person can change a group, one group can change a community can change a nation can change a world. This is the power of compassion. Now, I know some of you may have been a little bit surprised to see my name on this resolution, and Representative Kraft-Tharp was very kind to include me. And I'm very serious in my commitment to listening to the young people, because quite honestly, they're going to fix what we've messed up. We know they will. And with that, I would like to thank you all. And I am sincere when I ask this. Representative Duran, if you could join me in a well. This isn't a cold, it's an allergy, but I really, truly do mean this, and I'd like to extend my friendship to you.
Did you buy her a present?
No, I didn't buy you a present.
Okay, what's the friendship part for? Aw, isn't that sweet? Can we get a picture of that?
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to taking a voice vote? Seeing none, we'll proceed in that manner. All those in favor of SJR 28, say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate Joint Resolution 28 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, can you open the machine for co-sponsors? Good, close the machine. Close the machine. Representative Kraft-Tharp for introductions.
Thank you. So, members, I want to invite you to the Day Without Hate concert tonight at the Jeffco Stadium at 6th and Kipling. If you're wearing your T-shirt, it's free. It will be fun. And then I want to also take this opportunity to introduce the students from Stanley Lake High School. These students wrote this resolution for us, and these students contributed these T-shirts for us. So thank you very much and welcome.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the following bills be placed at the top of the special orders calendar for consideration today.
Madam Majority Leader, can we hold on one sec? Do we want to do third reading of bills first?
Yes, we do.
Can we proceed out of order because we have specials first?
Do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House proceed out of order for consideration of third reading, final passage.
Seeing no objection, the House will proceed out of order for third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Kohler, I'm going to be nice. I'll keep the coat rule relaxed for the remainder of the day. Because, you know, we shouldn't. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1385.
House Bill 1385, Representatives Priolo and Peniston, also Senators Johnston and Rivera, concerning creation of high school academic growth awards to correspond to high school athletic award classifications.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1385 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House, the passage of House Bill 1385 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. Representatives Fisher, Kagan, Pabon, close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1385 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1387.
House Bill 1387, Representatives Zabel and Fisher, also Senator Schwartz, concerning provisions of capital-related statutes and Colorado revised statutes in connection with amending or repealing obsolete, inconsistent, and conflicting provisions of law and clarifying the language to reflect legislative intent and current application of the law.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1387 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1387 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives, close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1387 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1376.
House Bill 1376, Representatives Buckner and Moreno, also Senator Ulibarri, concerning analysis of information relating to the academic success of public school students based on student placement in different instructional groups or course levels in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1376 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1376 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Rosenthal, close the machine. With 37 aye votes, 27 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1376 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1360.
House Bill 1360, Representative Young, also Senator Aguilar, concerning the continuation and regulation of home care agencies by the Department of Public Health and Environment in connection with implementing the recommendations of the 2013 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies as modified by the Legislative Sunset Committee and making an appropriation.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm still wearing my Day Without Hate T-shirt.
Are you going to move your bill for passage?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1360 and ask permission for a dreaded third reading amendment.
I was going to say 13th reading,
yes.
That would be really strange.
But it's Day Without Hate.
Okay, well, why don't you explain when let's get the amendment on the, hold on one sec, Representative Young, let's get the amendment up on the screen. There we go. Please explain what your amendment would do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you may recall, yesterday on seconds, I ran 3 rather large, substantial amendments to House Bill 1360, which is a sunset review, and subsequently discovered that some of the verbiage in there does not conform with the rest of the statutes. And so this amendment is simply to technical amendment to conform our language in those amendments to the rest of the statutes. I ask for permission to offer the amendment.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is to grant Representative Young permission to offer a third reading amendment. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Gardner, Giroux, Priola. Senator Priola. Close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, Representative Young is granted permission to offer a third reading amendment. Representative Young, you got to actually move your amendment.
Thank you,
Representative Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Amendment L012.
Seeing no further discussion, the question for the House is the adoption of Amendment L012. Mr. Cole, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Buckner, Stevens, and Young. Close the machine with 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent. Amendment L12 is adopted. Seeing no further discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1360 as amended. Mr. Cole, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Becker, Buck, Conti, Dorr, McNulty, Waller, and Stevens. Close the machine with 48 aye votes, 16 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent. House Bill 1360 as amended is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Cole, please read the title of House Bill 1382.
House Bill 1382, Representatives Young and Wilson, also Senators Kerr and Roberts, concerning the delivery of online education within the public elementary and secondary education system in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1382 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1382 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 38 aye votes, 26 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1382 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1380.
House Bill 1380 by Representatives Gardner and Fields, also Senator Nicholson, concerning the Colorado Coroner Standards and Training Board in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1380 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1380 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives McNulty, Pabon, and Szabo. Close the machine with 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent. House Bill 1380 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 117.
Senate Bill 117 by Senator John, also Representative Fisher, concerning the reauthorization of the regulation of real estate appraisals by the Board of Real Estate Appraisals through recreation and reenactment of the relevant statutes incorporating no substantive amendments other than those approved during the first regular session of the 69th General Assembly.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 117 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 117 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Del Grosso. Close the machine with 49 aye votes, 15 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent. Senate Bill 117 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 29.
Senate Bill 29 by Senator Newell, also Representative Fisher, concerning the establishment of paint stewardship program for the environmentally sound disposal of post-consumer architectural paint in connection with making an appropriation.
Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move for the passage of Senate Bill 29 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question, okay. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm going to urge a no vote. And it's not that we don't think that, we need to responsibly get rid of this paint. But the reality is we heard testimony yesterday that, we need a way to kickstart the paint recycling program in the industry in the state of Colorado. I think there's other ways we can do things to maybe get the industry moving, besides adding anywhere from $10 to $15 million of extra cost on the cost of paint in the state of Colorado. And as much as Representative Labuda tried to guarantee us yesterday that this program was going to work, and that if we dump all this money in, we're going to have this, lavish, awesome paint recycling program in the state of Colorado. There is no guarantee that if we raise the cost of paint by anywhere from $10 to $15 million a year initially, because there's no caps, if you remember the argument yesterday on what these companies can charge and that can continue to go up in the future, that this program is actually going to work. And that is why I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 29.
Representative McNulty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I sat in committee and listened to the testimony on this bill, I can't really say that I had made my mind up. In researching it before the vote, in listening to the testimony in committee, I was shocked, surprised. We have a paint recycling industry in Colorado. The industry is making a profit. They're recycling the paint. They're selling it to secondhand stores. They're selling it to customers. And this is all happening without the government subsidy of a paint tax. The industry is there now. And so, Representative Singer here, Representative Fisher, is going to come up and, I suspect, share what he shared in committee, and that is more can be done. More can be done to help educate people where to drop off their paint. More can be done to get more paint into the recycling side of things. Doesn't take $15 million from the paint tax to do that. The industry exists now. It's working now. It's working well now. And so what we're asked to set up with this bill is a government subsidy for a program that's working, where the recyclers making money, the secondhand retailers are making money, and the customers getting a quality product at a much discounted rate. What on earth is wrong with that? Every piece of it's working. And now, if this bill passes, every time you go to Home Depot or Lowe's to buy a can of paint, you're going to pay the paint tax. Every time your constituents head to the store to buy a gallon of paint, 5 gallons of paint, they're going to pay the paint tax to subsidize an industry that's making money now. Colleagues, this is a subsidy in search of a problem. I ask that you vote no on the paint tax.
Representative Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I rise in opposition of Senate Bill 29. Representative McNulty already mentioned some of the points I was going to mention, but we all as legislators have heard from those who are upset about the faster fees that were passed in prior years.
Representative Priola, can we keep it to this bill?
This is to the increased fees that we will be
Okay, then let's
paying.
talk about the fees in this bill, not other bills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But the nexus here is that we are all familiar with legislation on other fees concerning car parts, tires.
This is a fee on paint. Can we keep it to this?
This is similar to that in that going forward, we will be hearing from constituents who are upset when they walk in to a place of business like Lowe's or Home Depot, which they have for many years and have never had to pay a fee related to simply repainting the bathroom or something, and they're going to want to know why, and they're going to be calling us, and they're going to be a little upset that we have monkeyed with an industry that is already established and is working fine. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers. Of course, I asked for a no vote as well. It is ironic to me that we've used the term kickstart for this industry and for what we're doing here with this tax increase. Folks, think about it. Where'd kickstart come from? That was starting a motorcycle. You know, you give it one kick or two and it goes. Well, you know, and I ran an amendment the other day that said, okay, great. Let's run this thing for only 3 years. And if it's working, great, turn it off. But no, well, we can't do that. We got to have this in perpetuity. This subsidy for an industry, as Representative McNulty, I think, very well summarized, is already working. It just baffles me. So I certainly, as the way the bill is now, I'd strongly urge no vote, and appreciate your time.
Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I belong to the Rotary Club up in Evergreen, and every spring we have a recycle day. And people bring their recycling, and it's amazing because the line goes for blocks and blocks, and you'd be surprised, but in Evergreen we actually have an area where we do have blocks, curbs and gutter and everything. But when we have our recycle day, we each get assigned to different areas. And last summer I was assigned to the paint recycling area. And the gentleman that runs the paint recycling is really rather genius. What he does is he takes all those different colors, and he has to have a chemistry background. It's amazing what they do, in that he can take the different colors together and blend them. So he uses the paint that is turned in, and finds a common color, and it's not all just black, because we know when you're mixing colors, if you mix all your colors together, it comes to black. It's not that. He's been able to figure this out, so he can create colors that are used by either Habitat for Humanity houses or all the different functions that can be used. And it actually, it doesn't, and I understand the cradle to grave philosophy, and in a lot of ways I'm all for it. But what this does, it's better than cradle to grave, because it takes on a new life. It gives that paint a new life. And so, and I've run into this gentleman at the Colorado Conservation luncheons before, and I know he does a good business, and it is a livelihood for him. And I agree with Representative McNulty's comments about what it does to, that we have an industry, and this is his livelihood. So there's that aspect of it, and there's also the aspect of what it's going to do to the construction industry. And quite honestly, members, if you'll recall, you know, everything's going to get passed through, and Representative Fisher was very clear about the pass-through on this particular bill. It does cost people for this bill. And if it were the only solution, and I thought it was the best solution, because I do believe in cradle to grave, I'd be all over it. But we do have a solution already, and we do have a way that actually helps Habitat for Humanity. It helps small entrepreneurs that have the gift and the talent to take these unused, discarded paints and create a new life for them. And with that, I ask for a no vote.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll just be brief here, but I hope that no one gets the impression that this bill is about subsidizing or kickstarting the paint recycling industry, because that's not what it's about. That is one of the benefits, I think, of the bill. But it's not about trying to subsidize a business here. And as I agree with some of the comments that have already been made, there already are successful paint recycling businesses that have started. What this bill really is about is the manufacturers getting together through their American Coatings Association, a member organization of, I've heard, up to 350 paint manufacturers around the nation, who are seeking uniformity in the way unused architectural paint is handled in each state. They see this product stewardship model, a cradle-to-grave responsibility on the part of the manufacturer, as the best way, the best model that should really be adopted nationwide.
and that's what they're trying to do. So far, there are 7 other states that have done this, and part of the discussion is about the costs and so forth, and whether we like it to think about this or not, there's a cost associated with the life cycle of any product, whether you pay it up front when you buy the product or when you pay it at the end of that product's useful life. In the way things are done now, we externalize those costs to the end of the life cycle. When consumers have leftover paint right now, sometimes the only option is to take it to a place that will charge them up to $3 a gallon to get rid of that responsibly. Oftentimes, I believe that unused architectural paint ends up in the trash can and is disposed of in landfills, which is actually illegal. And there are indeed many very wonderful household hazardous waste programs around the state that will take unused architectural paint and properly dispose of it or recycle it. But those also have a cost associated with them. The one in Larimer County that I'm familiar with is paid for by landfill tipping fees. So every time your trash compactor drives up to your driveway, you're paying a little bit of money to operate that paint recycling and disposal facility in Larimer County. So there are costs. We can't fool ourselves that there are costs to the end final disposition of any product that we buy. The product stewardship model is based on the fact that you pay that cost up front. And it's going to be a few cents per gallon of paint. And so, members, I urge your support of this. I think this is a great model for the way we think about products, consumer products of many different kinds, not just paint. But I applaud the American Coatings Association and the paint manufacturers for stepping up to implement this program in Colorado, and I hope I'll have your favorable vote for this bill. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the House is the passage of Senate Bill 29 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 38 aye votes, 26 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 29 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the Senate Bill 1.
Senate Bill 1 by Senators John and Curl, Representatives Garcia and McLaughlin, concerning making college education more affordable by imposing further restrictions on tuition increases, increasing financial aid, increasing operating support for each governing board of state-supported institutions of higher education by 11% in connection with making appropriation.
Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move for the passage of Senate Bill 1 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 1 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine. The members, please vote. Representatives Gardner and Sane. Close the machine. With 48 aye votes, 16 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 1 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 150.
Senate Bill 150 by Senators Todd and Zenzinger, also Representative Hamner, concerning the Colorado School Counselor Corps Grant Program in connection with making appropriation.
Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move for the passage of Senate Bill 150 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 150 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine. The members proceed to vote. Representative Priola. Close the machine. With 38 aye votes, 26 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 150 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Cole, please read the title to Senate Bill 129.
Senate Bill 129 by Senator Stemmen, also Representative May, concerning changes to criminal provisions related to marijuana in connection with making an appropriation.
Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move for the passage of Senate Bill 129 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 129 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 129 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 8.
Senate Bill 8 by Senator Roberts, also Representatives Dorr and Exum, concerning the creation of Wildfire Information and Resource Center and Division of Fire Prevention and Control in the Department of Public Safety in connection with making and reducing appropriations.
Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move for the passage of Senate Bill 8 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 8 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Lebsack. Close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 8 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 189.
Senate Bill 189 by Senator Stemmen, also Representative Giroux, concerning a 2014-15 state fiscal year transfer of $9,672,000 from the Controlled Maintenance Trust Fund to the General Fund for the purpose of supporting a fiscal year 2014-15 appropriation for the Colorado Firefighting Air Corps.
Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move for the passage of Senate Bill 189 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 189 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Buck, Gardner, Lawrence, McNulty, Szabo, and Scott. Representative Buck. Close the machine. With 57 aye votes, 7 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 189 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Report to committees of reference.
The Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, committee recommends following Senate Bill 11 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. Senate Bill 1564 amended, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. Senate Bill 75 be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. Senate Bill 130, 144, 151, 157, and House Bill 13. Be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. The Committee on Health, Insurance, and Environment, after consideration on the merits, committee recommends following House Bill 1386 be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. Senate Bill 88 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Legislative Council for recommendation. Senate Bill 173 be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. The Committee on Judiciary, after consideration on the merits, committee recommends following House Bill 1324 be postponed indefinitely. House Bill 1378 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. House Bill 1388 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation. House Bill 1390 be referred to the Committee of the Whole for recommendation. Senate Bill 174 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the following bills be placed on the top of the special orders calendar for consideration today, April 25th at 10:25 a.m. And the bills are House Bills 1374, 1379, 1378, 1386, 1390, 1388, and 1375. Senate Bills 168, 183, 171, 152, 173, 125, 11, 15, 151, 64, 130, 144, 157, and 75.
Seeing no objection, the bills listed by the Majority Leader will be added to the top of the special orders calendar. Being that's our next order of business, Representative Kagan.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders.
Seeing no objection, the House will resolve itself in the committee hold for consideration of special orders. Representative Kagan will take the chair.
Come to order.
He's a hater.
With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Representative Hulbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1374 and the report from the Finance Committee.
Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1374.
House Bill 1374 by Representatives Holbert and Kraft, Arbol, Senators Hodge and Sheffield, concerning the inclusion of on-demand air carriers in the sales and use tax exemption for certain aircraft.
Representative Krafthoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in the Finance Committee, we basically did a strike below, and what we did was ensure that that this tax exemption would be for those people that are for the purpose of final assembly, maintenance, modification, or completion while in the state for a short period of time for those specific purposes. This was something that we worked out carefully with the Finance Committee and the stakeholders. We ask for an aye vote.
Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to offer particular thanks to Representative Becker and also you, Chairman Kagan, for finding fault in our original amendment in the Finance Committee, and to Chair Lady Court for allowing us an overnight layover to get the bill right. Right now, this bill would affect on-demand carrier aircraft that are brought to Colorado for final assembly, fit and finish, and clarifies that we would not apply a sales or use tax to that equipment when it is going to be domiciled, used in a different state. Ask for an aye vote.
Representative Holbert thanking the chair will not affect my determination of the voice vote if there is one. I want to assure you of that, but thank you. Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I look through the strike below, does this, you talked about assembly of aircraft. This only talks about, this only affects aircraft that are assembled in Colorado. Is that what I understand we're trying to do?
Representative Krafthoff.
Well, why, thank you, Representative Sonnenberg. Let's clarify that a little bit more, that this is aircraft that are in the state only for the purpose of final assembly, maintenance, modification, or completion.
Is there any further discussion of the Representative Holbert?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Representative Sonnenberg's question, it's my understanding that we have very little, maybe no actual aircraft manufacturer in Colorado. We do have companies at some of our civil aviation airports that can do final fit and finish for an aircraft that's purchased in a different state. So as an end user is shopping for a company to do that work, Colorado is now somewhat excluded from that because of the risk. We have a 120-day cap on the amount of time that aircraft can be on the ground here in Colorado. And the risk for some of those end users is that without this clarification, they may be subject to a sales or use tax in Colorado and then take that aircraft to its final destination where it will be registered with the FAA and end up paying sales or use tax in that state as well. So to escape the risk for those end users of double taxation and to open up this market for Colorado businesses, House Bill 1374 would clarify that when that aircraft is brought to Colorado for this final fit and finish, final manufacture process, that Colorado would not apply sales or use tax for that aircraft. It would then go on to its final destination, and whatever the taxation for that other state, that end user state is, this wouldn't change any aspect of what taxes Colorado might collect because those vehicles, those aircraft are not being registered, domiciled here in Colorado.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess my confusion comes from obviously then the bill no longer has anything to do with, and I'm not sure what an on-demand air carrier is, but a charter or something like that. It has nothing to do with those any longer. Is that correct?
Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Sonnenberg, there has been substantial change from the bill as introduced. However, this exemption is specific for on-demand carriers. There is a current exemption for the commercial carriers when their aircraft are on the ground here in Colorado. They are not subject to taxation. And the question now is for an on-demand carrier that might be a company, a person in a different state, when they're looking for a place to do the final fit and finish on, for instance, an air ambulance. I believe Cessna is in Kansas. A hospital might go to Kansas, buy a Cessna, and then look for a company to do the final fit and finish to equip that aircraft exactly the way they want it. Colorado is not doing this business now, and we have, for instance, Centennial Airport and Front Range Airport in Representative Kraft-Clark's district. We have companies that can do that business, but it is next to impossible for them to attract that business into Colorado because there is a lack of clarification on whether Colorado would apply a sales or use tax to that equipment when it will not be effectively registered in Colorado. That's not the technical term with aircraft as it is with automobiles. Aircraft are registered with the FAA, and I believe the correct term is domiciled in a different state. This bill does provide clarification with these on-demand carriers that they will not be subject to the sales or use tax while that aircraft is in Colorado. The 120-day limitation is still there. There's also another limitation that aircraft cannot be in Colorado, I believe, for 73 days over the next 3-year period. So it really is restrictive. It mirrors the language that is in statute for other types of aircraft under different ownership scenarios. But for this on the on-demand, it does provide clarity so that our companies here in Colorado can have a chance to bid on that work for final fit and finish, construction, maintenance of those aircraft. Ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion of the Finance Committee report to House Bill 1374? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Finance Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Kraft-Clark.
Thank you. So, members, I urge you to support this bill. Representative Holbert and I worked on a air carrier manufacturer bill last year that has been very successful in helping to really bring the air carrier manufacturing business back to Colorado and bring jobs to Colorado. And through that success, one of the gaps that we discovered, or that the airport folks discovered, is that those people that are actually building the parts out of state, they bring the parts here to Colorado to manufacture, and then that airplane gets sold and leaves the state, that there is a real disincentive for businesses to do that manufacturing work here in Colorado. That's what 1374 tries to fill that gap. Members, I'm requesting your yes vote on this. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1374? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1374. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1374 is passed. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1379.
House Bill 1379 by Representative McCann, also Senator Kerr, concerning clarifying the application of spousal maintenance statutes.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1379.
To the bill, Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1379 is just really a cleanup from the spousal maintenance bill that we passed last year. It does two things. It clarifies that if a dissolution action was filed prior to January 1 of 2014, it is governed by the law that was in effect until January 1, 2014, when last year's bill went into effect. It also clarifies that if upon remarriage or the establishment of a civil union, spousal maintenance will terminate. And that was just adding the provision about the civil union, since that wasn't in the law last year. So I would ask for an aye vote.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1379. Will all those in favor please say aye? Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1379 is passed. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1378.
Mr. Chair.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1378 until after House Bill 1390.
House Bill 1378, at the request of the Majority Leader, will be laid over until after 1390. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1386.
House Bill 1386 by Representatives Kraft, Tharp, and Gardner, also Senators Johnston and Hill, concerning conforming definitions in Section 2765102 CRS to task force recommendations.
Representative Kraft, Tharp, or Gardner? Representative Kraft, Tharp, Gardner. Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, House Bill 1386 is the bill.
Representative Gardner, is there a motion?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1386 and no committee report.
To the bill, Representative Gardner.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for your patience. This is concerning the civil commitment standards in Colorado. Members, this is a very important bill. It is a bill that has had a lot of discussion, some controversy. We think that the formulation for, in particular, emergency civil commitments within this bill has been vetted carefully by the Mental Health Task Force. And for that reason, we ask for an aye vote.
Oh, you can't? Oh. I need Representative Kraft.
Thank you, members. Just to remind you that last year we did talk about these definitions and of in danger of yourself or others and gravely disabled, and it was the recommendation of this group that these definitions be referred to the Civil Commitment Task Force for further stakeholder involvement. And the stakeholders did do that, and they have brought this back, and so now we're asking for your support. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1386? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1386. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1386 is passed. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1390.
House Bill 1390 by Representatives Duran and Gardner, also Senators Brophy and Zenzinger, concerning the legal standing of a member of the public and challenging a violation of the open meeting requirements.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now that I've got the train, I move House Bill 1390, and there is no committee report.
Representative Gardner to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it is not even 12 hours ago, well, perhaps a little more than that, that you and I heard House Bill 1390 in committee. This is a very important bill for transparency in local government, and we ask for an aye vote.
And is there any further discussion of House Bill 1390? Seeing none, question before us is the passage of House Bill 1390. All those in favour say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1390 is passed. Mr. Cole, please read the title of House Bill 1378.
House Bill 1378 by Representative Stevens and Pabon concerning prohibiting the posting of a private image on social media without consent to cause serious emotional distress.
Representative Stevens or Pabon?
We can run it. Thank you.
Representative Stevens.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1378 and the Judicial Committee report.
Representative Stevens to the report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members, yesterday we ran about 6 amendments in committee. And on this issue of revenge porn, and believe me, this is the first time we have 14 states that are dealing with this issue. Basically, what this report covers are the amendments to this. And let me just say that this is about a crime of someone posting, distributing, disseminating the photo, non-consensual photo of intimate parts. And Mr. Chair, the amendments that were accepted yesterday dealt with 18 years of age or older who commits the offense of posting a private image if he or she with the intent to harass or humiliate the person, which causes emotional distress, or for extortion purposes, or for financial gain. And this would be through the use of social media, any photograph, video, or other image containing the intimate parts as defined in 18.3.401, Section 2. With that, Mr. Chair, I ask we have 2 amendments to run in addition to this committee report.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L011 and ask that it be displayed.
Amendment L011 has been moved and has been properly displayed. Representative Pabon to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this came up during our discussion in Judiciary and was suggested actually by Representative McLaughlin to make sure that we did not go so far with this bill that we would be criminalizing behavior essentially of a shirtless man that could be distributed.
Right.
And there's nothing more or less about that. It just changes the definition of intimate parts, so we don't cover that scenario. Ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion of Amendment L011? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Amendment L011 to the Judiciary Committee report to House Bill 1378. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. L011 is passed. Representative Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move Amendment L012 and ask that it be displayed on the screen. Oh, it's not ready? Okay.
Can you take a brief recess?
Yep. Committee will stand in brief recess. Committee will come to order.
Posted there.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L014 and ask that it be displayed.
Yeah, you know why.
Amendment 014 has been moved and properly displayed. Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, this is an exception to what otherwise might be criminal behavior based on both the First Amendment and...
I'm so sorry. This is to the bill. We need to pass the judiciary first.
Mr. Chair, I withdraw Amendment L014.
Amendment L014 is withdrawn. Are there any other amendments to the Judiciary Committee report?
He wants to know what newsworthy.
Seeing none, is there any further discussion of the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question before the House is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report to House Bill 1378. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Judiciary Committee report is adopted. Representative Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the committee. We did some tough work yesterday. This is how bills are made. But again, really what we're here to deal with is the issue of that click of the button and that person with maliciousness, with the intent to harass and to harm and to humiliate, to emotional distress. Very often this is non-consensual pornography. This is non-consensual. And what we looked at in committee yesterday is this ability, if someone sends a photo intimately of their intimate part with the understanding that it's for that person's eyes only, 6 months later it winds up on a revenge porn site. Members, it's destroyed lives, it's destroyed careers, it's destroyed jobs, and I certainly would urge an aye vote. It's time that Colorado not only criminalize this, but speak to this issue on behalf of all victims. And this is a very common issue. This is not a one-time thing, and we heard about this yesterday. We want to tackle it in our state. 14 other states are doing it. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I move L014. Ask that it be displayed.
Amendment L014 has been moved and properly displayed. Representative Pabon to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I was saying earlier, this is a exception to what otherwise might be criminal behavior, which is if you've got an image that is widely known and is newsworthy, and that's a term of art under the First Amendment, to protect that type of conduct. And I don't have a great example, for the record, other than the Anthony Weiner episode and sharing that image. It's a newsworthy image, and it is protected under the First Amendment to do so. So this makes sure that we don't criminalize otherwise permissible First Amendment behavior, and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion of Amendment L014? The question before the House, the committee, is the passage of Amendment L014. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L014 is passed. To the bill, Representative Cort. Oh, Representative Pabon. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, this is a very important criminal justice bill to help those victims who are put at complete and utter humiliation, emotional distress, life-changing, life-altering photo posting that can many times never be removed from the public domain. And this could happen to our daughters, our sisters, our wives, in fact, our sons, our husbands, our brothers. This is a far-ranging and very detrimental to our society. This is a bill that recognizes that society changes, technology changes, and so our laws must change to address this abhorrent criminal behavior. And I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Cort.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Folks, we heard this in Judiciary yesterday afternoon, evening. And Brian Moss from Channel 4 had done a special interview about this with a young man in Colorado Springs who created a site to make money off of showing these videos, photographs, etc. And the interview with him was horribly disturbing to me. When the reporter, Brian Moss, asked this young man if he didn't think that this was a sleazy activity, the young man said, "Well, we have a sleazy society." That really gave me pause. I was terribly disturbed by that comment. If this is the way that people think about our society, we're in big trouble. And doing something like this just brings all of us down. And to think that, well, society's just sleazy anyway. Well, if we allow this kind of behavior to perpetuate, yeah, we get sleazier and sleazier, and more scumbags participate in this kind of activity. So we are not going to let that happen in Colorado. I urge an aye vote, and I absolutely thank and respect Representatives Stevens and Pabon for bringing this bill. Thank you.
Representative Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I also want to thank the bill sponsors, Representative Pabon and Representative Stevens, for sponsoring this legislation. The way I look at it, sometimes people think that the internet is a lawless place, that you can do anything that you want. But I can tell you the most horrifying thing an ex can do is to post nude photos. I had the opportunity to watch a Katie Couric show, and a woman was on there talking about what it felt like after her ex, after they broke up. He posted these photos of her. And she was totally embarrassed. She was humiliated. She felt like it was nowhere she could go when she was out in business meetings. She felt like people were looking at her as if she did not have on any clothes. Our internet should not be a lawless society where people can do anything that they want. That's why I applaud the bill sponsors, because we're going to be able to put an end to that kind of activity. So I thank you so much for doing this bill.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have really appreciated the comments so far on this bill, because it really was astonishing to me, as Representative Court said, to see the discourtesy and disregard for common decency that the people that have these sites exhibited. Now, what we're going after are the perpetrators who distribute a photo without, and generally it is a woman, 60% of the time it's a woman, distribute a photo of her to others and share it basically on the internet. There's a lot of discussion about, is this a free speech matter? And yes, it is, but when it comes to some kind of expected degree of privacy, when it comes to a naked body, it seems to me that that's something we should consider, and it has a huge impact on someone's personal life, their business life. There were women in the background who had stories to tell, but they would not testify because they did not want to be up front with this issue. So an attorney had to come and tell us their stories. So I really appreciated the hard work that the sponsors did on this bill, because it is really plowing new ground. Just like we have to plow new ground with marijuana in this state, we have to be aware of what's going on the internet and where we take a stand as Colorado residents. So thanks to the sponsors, and I urge a strong aye vote for this bill.
Okay, Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I also rise in strong support of this bill. I hate to echo the words of the previous speakers, but we did hear stories about women who have just had their lives devastated by this. And I also want to mention that 40% of this affects men. I know a lot of times we don't think about men being affected by this, but it does happen. And we need to recognize the fact that with the society that we have today and the electronic social media, where it's so easy to take a picture and hit send without really thinking about what you're doing and what the long-term ramifications are going to be. And this bill actually gives
Members, please show some respect to the well and for the debate, please. Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Almost said Speaker. Thank you very much. This bill actually gives voice to those men and women who are victims of revenge porn. You know, who've been in a relationship, took pictures that they shared because it was someone that they trusted. And now that trust has changed, and through some malicious intent, that person has decided to post these pictures. And this gives that woman the opportunity to have them taken down before it has a devastating effect on her life, before it affects her ability to get a job, before her name is out there, her hometown, her contact information, her Facebook page, every way that she can be reached and contacted by people, not just in this state, but from around the world, because social media is a worldwide event now. And I just thank the sponsors for stepping up and taking on such a heavy lift. This will be step one, I believe. I think we will be probably working on this in the future because it is something very new. And I would ask everyone in this chamber to please support this bill. Thank you.
Members, that hardly made any difference at all to the noise levels in this chamber. I would really ask the members and the guests, if you have to converse, please converse in a low voice. Thank you. Representative Stevens.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, this bill really, I will tell you, it's a labor of all working together. I think it's a great win for Colorado, and I certainly would urge an aye vote.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was one point that I wanted to bring up, and I apologize. You thought I was finished, Representative Stevens. Some people might say, well, a woman should not have sent that photo to begin with. And perhaps some of us do have that opinion. But that's just like saying back in the days when we were starting to look at rape as a very serious crime, that woman shouldn't have worn that short skirt and she wouldn't have been raped. So, you know, the photo was sent in a very private way with an intimate relationship with no intention to share it with the world. So let's don't criticize the woman for doing this. Let's criticize the perpetrator who passes that picture on for a use that was not intended by the woman. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1378? Seeing none, the question before the Committee of the Whole is whether to pass House Bill 1378. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 1378 is passed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee rise and report progress and beg leave to sit again later today.
Committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Kohler, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, Committee of the Whole reports as follows. It has arisen reports progress and begs leave to sit again later in the day.
Message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate has adopted and transmits herewith Senate Joint Memorial 3, amended on April 25, 2014, as printed in Senate Journal.
Introduction of memorials.
Senate Joint Memorial 3 by Senator Baumgartner, also Representatives Quorum and Mitch Bush, memorializing former Senator Dave Wattenberg.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House suspend the rules for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Memorial 3.
Seeing no objection, the House will suspend the rules for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Memorial 3. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Joint Memorial 3.
Senate Joint Memorial 3 by Senator Baumgartner, also Representatives Quorum and Mitch Bush, memorializing former Senator Dave Wattenberg.
Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Joint Memorial 3 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas our respected former colleague, Dave Wattenberg, a past member of the Colorado Senate and House of Representatives, departed this life on January 20th, 2014 at the age of 73. And whereas Senator Wattenberg was born April 4th, 1940 on his family's ranch in North Park, Colorado to Elmer and Ava Wattenberg. And whereas Senator Wattenberg graduated from Jackson County High School in 1958 and attended college in Ames, Iowa for 2 years, returning to North Park to work on the ranch after his uncle Harry Wattenberg's death. And whereas Senator Wattenberg began his public service as an elected official by serving as a member of the North Park School District Board of Education for 12 years. And whereas Senator Wattenberg was elected first to the House of Representatives in 1982, where he served on the Education Committee and the Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources Committee. And whereas in 1984, Senator Wattenberg was elected to represent Senate District 8 in the Senate, where he served for the next 16 years. And whereas while a member of the Senate, Senator Wattenberg served for 8 years on the Transportation Committee, including 4 years as chair, served 9 years on the Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee, including 2 years as chair, and served for 16 years on the Business Affairs and Labor Committee, including 2 years as vice chair and 8 years as chair. And whereas Senator Wattenberg was also a member of the Local Government Committee, as well as a number of joint and interim committees. And whereas Senator Wattenberg was a consummate statesman, a man who stood by his beliefs but avoided overly partisan politics, and this willingness to find common ground despite political differences earned Senator Wattenberg the respect of his fellow legislators as well as lobbyists and reporters. And whereas Senator Wattenberg was well known for his sense of humor and his love of playing practical jokes on his fellow legislators. And whereas Senator Wattenberg sometimes went to great lengths to pull off a practical joke, such as dressing in a brightly colored silk shirt and skin-tight saddle pants to pop out of a large gift-wrapped box placed in the well of the House to surprise a fellow legislator on her birthday, and appearing on the Senate floor as Mildred, a properly attired woman complete with hat, gloves, stockings, and makeup to play an April Fool's joke on a fellow senator. And whereas when that same fellow senator was later nominated to head an executive branch agency, Senator Wattenberg conducted the confirmation hearing with an Old West theme of Hang 'em High, having all of the committee members wear judicial robes as if conducting a trial, and having a hanging noose at the hearing just in case the senator was found not qualified to hold the office. And whereas despite his exemplary career as a Colorado legislator, Senator Wattenberg considered himself first and foremost a rancher and a cowboy, involved both in the cattle business and promoting agriculture, and brought his deep and abiding respect for Colorado's land and its people to bear on his leadership style as a legislator. And whereas Senator Wattenberg was a lifelong member of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, the North Park Stock Growers Association, and the North Park Pioneer Association. And whereas Senator Wattenberg was a longtime member of the National Western Association, who was involved with the National Western Stock Show not only as a cattleman, showcasing his own and others' cattle from North Park, but also as an active supporter through efforts such as arranging numerous guests to attend the stock show to learn about and appreciate the importance and contributions of the agricultural industry, and encouraging young persons' involvement in agriculture through raising donations from fellow legislators to purchase animals at the stock show's junior livestock auction. And whereas through his lifelong efforts, Senator Wattenberg proved himself to be a true ambassador for the National Western Stock Show and the agricultural industry in Colorado. And whereas Senator Wattenberg is remembered as a dedicated public servant who championed agriculture and ranching as integral parts of the Colorado economy and way of life, fighting fiercely for what he believed would improve and protect this state and its people he held so dear. And whereas it is fitting that we, the members of the 69th General Assembly, pay tribute to the dedicated service of Senator Dave Wattenberg and express our deep regret and sorrow occasioned by his death. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that in the death of Senator Dave Wattenberg, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the 69th General Assembly, do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served his state well and faithfully. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint memorial be sent to Senator Wattenberg's wife, Mary Sharon Wells, his son, Ty Wattenberg, his wife's sons, Guy Morgan Wells and Joseph Bryan Wells, his wife's sister, Sarah Janet Freeman, the North Park Stock Growers Association, the National Western Association, the Colorado Farm Bureau, the North Park Pioneer Association, and the Colorado State Fair Board.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. Please be seated. I am very proud that Senator Wattenberg was my representative and my senator from 1983 to 2000. As you heard, he was born on a ranch in North Park. He ranched in North Park. He involved himself, like all ranchers do, in the community in North Park. And then he represented North Park and all of us in Northwest Colorado. For those of you not familiar with North Park, it is one of the most beautiful areas in all of Colorado, ringed by magnificent mountains with verdant hay meadows and very productive herds of cattle throughout. Like all ranchers, he loved the land and he loved his community, and he worked hard and honestly across the aisle for practical, common sense solutions. His first public service was 12 years on the Jackson School Board. And then he, of course, was elected to the Colorado House in 1982, served under Speaker Bledsoe, and was really known in the House, yes, for this fabulous sense of humor, which leavened perhaps acrimony, but he was also known really for working across the aisle, for standing tall for his beliefs and for the people in Northwest Colorado while still reaching out to others and genuinely being bipartisan. Then he was elected to the Senate, and in the Senate he served on a number of committees, including, of course, Ag, Water, Natural Resources, and Business and Labor, which once again showed his commitment to bringing in all stakeholders. He worked both with the operators and owners of coal mines and with the United Mine Workers Union, bringing them together across the table. Throughout his career, he worked with honesty, he worked with integrity, and always across the aisle, and always bringing that wonderful sense of humor and that faith in those values of our ranching communities in all of Northwest Colorado: hard work, integrity, honesty, a man you could trust, and a man you could share a good laugh with, as he shared a good laugh with you.
Representative Corum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed an honor for me to bring this memorial to you today. Had I really thought about today, and I would have probably dressed in drag as Lois Court, but as you all know, I look quite stunning doing that. But anyway, it is an honor to honor this person. I had met Dave Wattenberg, but did not know him well. But I truly feel that I know him well through his reputation. He carried a great reputation, something that I have been accused of having a somewhat sick sense of humor. But about a month ago or something in Grand Junction, Club 20, I was given an honor as the Johnson Theus Award. It's a bridge builder award for people who work across the aisle. And I shared that award with Donna Mint and Dave Wattenberg, and it was truly an honor to be mentioned with that group, because they have been voices in Colorado, and it's just a true pleasure to know that a man who I think he worked hard, he lived life every day like it was his last day, and he was truly a great person for Colorado.
Representative Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know Representative Mitch Bush and Representative Corum think that Dave Wattenberg, Senator Wattenberg, belonged to their county, but more recently in Jefferson County, a few years ago was at a fundraiser of some kind, and this gentleman came up and introduced himself, and he's wearing his cowboy boots and his jeans, and he said, "Oh, hi, Representative Schaefer, I'm Dave Wattenberg." And I thought, Oh, I think I know that name. This is Dave Wattenberg, Senator, the distinguished senator, the tremendous service that he has given to Colorado. I think our state has lost a great public servant. Jefferson County has lost a wonderful citizen. He was still involved in many agricultural and ranching and water activities for our state, and I want to extend my sympathy to Mary Sharon and his family, and we will miss him greatly. Thank you very much for bringing this resolution, this memorial.
Is there any other current members who would like to speak to the memorial? Seeing none, the House will stand in recess so we can allow former members to address the chamber. If there are any former members who would like to speak, please come down to the well. Mr. Former Majority Leader Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I'm going to forego my stories. I just told them in the Senate, so you can listen to the tape. I think it's online if you want to.
We try not to listen to the Senate.
Yeah, well, just a little bit. There are actually great stories told of Senator Wattenberg, where he spent most of his time just a few minutes ago over there. Needless to say, we got along well because he liked bartenders. Congressman Perlmutter was here, but had to go do some congressional stuff. So I want to take the opportunity to read what he's putting into the congressional record on Monday when they go back to theoretically doing some work. It's House of Representatives congressional record. It says, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the memory of my colleague, neighbor, and above all else, my friend, Dave Wattenberg. Dave passed away on Monday, January 20th, 2014, with his wife, Mary Sharon, by his side. Dave and I served together for 6 years in the Colorado State Senate. He was a cowboy whose wit was unmatched, but he was a serious legislator and public servant. During the years of Dave's service, he passed over 250 bills. These laws encompassed mining, banking, air quality standards for public lands, and even bringing horse racing back to the state of Colorado. He cared deeply about rural Colorado and his home and the people of northwest Colorado and Jackson County. He understood better than most the issues that affected ranchers and farmers, and he brought those issues to light in the State House. The Colorado Brand Association legislation sponsored by Dave was most important to his love of Western heritage. Dave knew what it took to bring people together, to compromise and strike a deal to make good public policy for the people of Colorado. I was honored to be the beneficiary of Dave and Mary Sharon's help and support over the years. Whenever I talked to Dave, he wanted to know how he could help me. I will always remember the events in his backyard and treasure the times we just sat and talked and joked about our times at the State House, as well as about family and politics. I know how much his wife, Mary Sharon, will miss him. I and so many others will miss him too. Thank you, Ed Perlmutter, Member of Congress. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members.
Thank you, Representative Weissman. Representative Anderson. I know it's Senator, but you're in the House.
And actually, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I spent more time in the House than I did in the Senate.
Smart lady.
Dave Wattenberg, I know that you did not know him, but you missed something. He was probably the best legislator that walked through this, both the House and the Senate, because he worked with both parties. He did everything with humor, but occasionally he'd be difficult. We had a bill, I had a bill here in the House, and Stan Sowers, you don't know him either, he was a lobbyist. And it was for to create the horse board. Dave Wattenberg hated that bill. And he managed to kill it several times, but it kept coming back, and we finally got it passed. And Mary Sharon Wells, when she just fell madly in love with Dave and spent a good marriage with him and was with him to the end. And it was part of what the old legislative body was like before you got all these constitutional amendments to stop you from being friends. I don't think Dave Wattenberg had an enemy. Not here. Not in this House, not in the Senate, ever. Now, he did challenge people. I remember once, see, we used to have fun parties. We had a dance over at the, I can't even remember what it was called anymore, but we used to have pizza parties and dances. And you remember those. Yeah. And I was dancing with Danny Williams. And Dave Wattenberg challenged us for a contest. The band quit too early. And you heard that Dave Wattenberg was on Business Affairs. Well, when I got in the Senate, I was appointed chair of Business Affairs, and Dave was chair of Ag. But I decided that between Ken Klober and Dave Wattenberg, I wasn't sure who was chair and who was running the committee. I mean, he controlled everything he did. Wonderful man that we will miss. And I thank you, Dave, for the time that you spent with us.
Former Representative Marlene Fish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I'm Marlene Fish. I was in the legislature from the early 90s until early in the turn of the century. I was defeated. And so I've been paying attention to what's going on. But Dave Wattenberg and I, because I came from out of Iowa as a farm girl, I figured a cowboy would be a good person to get to know. So early on, I checked him out and said, he's a nice guy. I will find some law, or I will go over and observe the Transportation Committee, which he was, I think, chairing at that time, at least was on it. And so I paid attention to what was being said, and they had a bill regarding snow plows on the highways, and they said it had yellow lights and didn't have any blue lights, and they had a lot of blue lights left in the department, and they really didn't know what to do with them. And so they decided they would have propose a bill to look at this matter, and of course Dave was very embarrassed about the whole bill. He thought that really wasn't very important. But I, of course, was a new legislator, and so I didn't have very many bills. I thought, well, I'll do it. I took the bill and ran it, and it passed. And how many years later? 35 probably. Klober is State Senator Klober is teasing me about that bill, and here he comes. I thought a lot of Dave Wattenberg because he was a cowboy who appreciated people from corn country.
Former Representative Diane Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, members. It's nice to be back in the House chambers. Some of you look familiar, some of you look new to me, but I'm glad Representative Sonnenberg is still representing the part of the state that's near and dear to my heart. I met Senator Wattenberg long before I came into the House of Representatives. He was the cowboy. I'll admit that I met him over at a place that is now called the City Grill, and sat with him and several other legislators and friends, and I was very interested to learn that amendments are made on cocktail napkins. Agreements were forged there, and usually they held up the next day, and that seemed to be a good way to do business. I want to tell you a little story about Dave's character. Dave was very influential. As you've heard, he could work with both sides of the aisle, and he was a very persistent person. If you didn't agree with him at first, he'd come back always with a little humor and say, you know, you need to get on this bill, or you need to see things my way. One time, a group of us, made an annual trip down to Las Vegas for the National Finals Rodeo, and all of us had connections to the Capitol here. But those were the days before TSA. And this particular trip, we were flying out of Colorado Springs to go to Las Vegas. And we'd all checked in at the front desk except for Dave. And when Dave got up there, the clerk said, you know, I'll need to see your ID. And he said, well, that's something new. And she said, yes, it is. You know, it's new policy. We have to check everybody's ID and make sure it matches their ticket. And he reached in his pocket. He didn't have his billfold. Here he was going to Las Vegas. He didn't have his identification. He didn't have his money. How could he have any fun? But being very resourceful, Mary Sharon looked in her purse. She found one of his campaign brochures with his picture on it with his cowboy hat, the same cowboy hat he was wearing there. And the clerk said, sure enough, that's you. You can get on the plane. I was fortunate enough to serve 2 years at the same time Dave was in the Senate and I was in the House. We carried one bill together, and it was a bill for agriculture, of course, to support ag in the classroom. And it was one of those dreaded license plate bills. The bill, of course, passed easily through the House, but when it got over to the Senate, I worked with some of our friends there who decided they'd have a little fun with Dave. He was in his last year in the Senate. They had pictures of the license plate. They blew pictures up and put his picture dressed in drag as Mildred in the center of that license plate instead of the little farmstead that did get on the plate. I think as we were looking at those photos, there was a picture of that, but the picture was kind of faded and you really couldn't see his dress as Mildred, but he made a beautiful woman. I will tell you that Dave and Mary Sharon are good friends. I treasure their friendship, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him as a legislator. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Representative Donna Ment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I had the privilege of working with Senator Wattenberg, I guess 8 years in the Senate. 4 years I spent here with you all, which was really a lot of fun, I have to admit that. I was the butt of Senator Wattenberg's humor very many times. And the thing that some of you would never believe, I termed out of the Senate and was appointed by Governor Owens to be the Commissioner of Agriculture. So I had to go through Senate confirmation. Everybody in the governor's office thought this would be a breeze. I'd chaired the Senate Ag Committee for all those years. This isn't going to be any problem. Until we noticed circulating around the Capitol were these little yellow pamphlets that said, come to the last public hanging, come to the Supreme Court chambers and watch Hang 'Em High. And I soon found out when I walked in the door and David Beaujean introduced the Ag Committee, which was now dressed in judges' robes. Senator Wattenberg, or Senator Wattenberg at the time, wearing his black hat, had the hangman's noose. Senator Wattenberg was dressed in a white barrister wig. And that's when I thought, you know, we're in trouble. So it went on. He had charged everybody that would pay to come. The Supreme Court chambers was full. We had a new governor that thought he probably should be on the front page of the paper and not his Commissioner of Agriculture. They proceeded to, everybody in the country was in there testifying about my pros or cons. The one you'd like the best, though, was, some of you may remember Wally Steele. Ford, I guess, was on the dais before, and he said, I want to yield the rest of my time to Wally the Body Steele. Well, let me tell you, by the time I got up there to do my part, I really didn't know whether a cow got up front end first or back end first, or horses even got up. It turned out to be a very fun experience that I wanted to share with you, because it was his humor that always brought people together, and that was the very important part. In fact, I do remember after Ag Department, we have an insectary over in Palisade that breeds bugs to kill all these invasive weeds and so on. So Wattenberg goes over there on a tour and pulls out of his coat pocket a can of Raid. Well, let me tell you, that didn't go over so good with our bug breeders. Well, this is Dave Wattenberg, and it's just been a pleasure for all of us that had to work with him and found out all the great things that he could do with his humor. So it's been my pleasure to share those stories with you today. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Former Representative Ken Klober.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members, staff. We just went through this over in the Senate, and when you're talking about Senator Wattenberg, you have two just compelling, overwhelming emotions. When you have the memories of Senator Wattenberg and all her interactions with him, you got to laugh. You just got to laugh, but when you think he's gone, you can't do that anymore. Then you got to cry. So. There's some of us that I think Mary Sharon thought we were pretty tough and found out maybe we're not so tough. Senator Wattenberg was cut from tall timber. We had that. One of particular memories Representative Senator Commissioner Ament just brought up was his confirmation as ag boss, and so Senator Wattenberg was chair of the committee. I'm vice chair. We're all dressed up. There was a big hangman's rope brought in, set right in front of us, and our charge, according to Senator Wattenberg, was to come to a conclusion. We were either to confirm Senator Ament to ag boss, or we were to hang him. In later conversations, we were never quite sure we came to the right conclusion. Senator Wattenberg was special guy. He's a cowboy's cowboy. Gun clean, knife sharp, sun at your face, wind at your back, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, feed your horse and your dog first, and never turn your back on a friend. He proved that in the political arena with, as you'll recall, with Congressman Perlmutter. Congressman Perlmutter running for re-election in his office as a high-dollar Republican running for that office. Senator Wattenberg said, Congressman Perlmutter was my friend, is my friend, will always be my friend, and I'm endorsing him and supporting him for election to Congress. So he didn't pay attention to whatever party you were affiliated with, and I think that as you as representatives will find that as you go along, that some of your very best friends are registered in the wrong party. There was only one David Wattenberg, and never will there be another. Thank you, members.
Former Senator Bill Schroeder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had the privilege of serving with Dave for 12 years in the Senate. I didn't get that privilege to serve in this body, but serving with Dave for 12 years was an experience in itself. And you've heard a lot of stories about Dave. You've heard about Mildred and some of the things that Mildred did. If you would have seen that photo of Dave dressed as Mildred, you would have thought it was a nice little old lady sitting at the back of the Senate chambers. And then the little old lady and Senator Ament had a discussion on the floor, and Dave would tell how great his experience was with Senator Ament in the back of a 1948 Mercury. And so there's a lot of stories, and you gotta give Dave credit, because he kept things hopping, he kept us laughing, and one of the things that he did, we had a few railroad bills, And Dave ran all the time. The railroad bill that had to have, when you stopped at an intersection, you had to have a bridge car. The bridge car would pull up in the intersection and cars could drive through while the train was stopped. That was Dave's bill. He had another one about bicyclists. Some of you may remember Representative Shoemaker. And Jeff ran a bill on bicyclists, and Dave added an amendment in the Senate that says you couldn't ride your bike over 8,000 feet, I think it was, unless you had snow tires, spikes, and in the months of November, December, and January, I believe he had in there. But he did those kind of things. For me, I ran a bill called Year-Round Daylight Savings when I got there in 1987. I ran it 3 times, as a matter of fact. And it was one of the better bills, even though it never passed. We had a lot of fun. But Dave didn't like that bill. Neither did the Speaker of the House, Bledsoe. And so Dave, like you've heard, Dave had lots of friends in the House and the Senate. But what Dave did to me was the bill was being heard on second reading, and he closed all the drapes in the Senate, turned on all the lights, and I'm standing up there with the bill. I can't even see my hand in front of my face. And I had to lay it over because there's nothing I could do. And Dave is that kind of guy. He had a lot of fun, and I did. I served with Dave on the Business Affairs and Labor Committee, and Dave was the chairman. He also at times was just a committee member. I was the vice chairman of that committee, and we had a lot of great times. Dave would always say to me, because my wife came with me a lot, and Dave would say to me, Senator Schroeder, before you vote, look behind you. Because Vicki would kick my chair if I voted wrong in her eyes. And so he, turn around and check your vote before you vote. And those are the kind of things that Dave did. He was also he loved poetry. And in the Senate, he would bring down a poet named Baxter Black, and who's a great poet. And Dave would do some of his own poetry, and things like that. But I mean, so you got a guy that's really has a great time and at the same time gets very serious when it comes to poetry. So we're all going to miss him. One time we were over at the hospice. It was myself, Mary Sharon Wells, Senator Dottie Wong, a couple of her friends, Dave, and we're all sitting there talking politics. If you guys would have just listened to everything we said, you'd have all your problems taken care of. We covered everything. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity, and we're all going to miss Dave Wattenberg tremendously.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the House will come back to order. Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor to bring this memorial and hear about someone with such a sense of humor. And Representative McNulty a few moments ago asked me, Quorum, will you do my memorial? And I said, I got time next week, but he's backed out of that. So, but I think with that, we have some guests that we would like to introduce.
Well, let's pass the memorial.
All right. Let's pass it. I move that we pass memorial.
Yeah, let's.
03.
Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote on adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 3. Representative May.
It's okay.
Representative Zabone Williams. Close the machine. With 63 aye votes, 0 no votes, 2 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Joint Memorial 3 is adopted. Representative Mitch Bush.
Mr. Speaker, I move the current roll call of the House be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors to Senate Joint Memorial 3. Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I would like to acknowledge Dave's wife, Mary Sharon, and her son, Greg Wells. Also, we have in the House good friends Russell and Meredith Wilkins. And from the staff, Dorothy Cardinal, Royda Campbell, and Pam Inman. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, members. The House will stand in a brief recess so we can say hi to our guests. The House will come back to order. Members, given the time and that Ledge Council has to meet at 12 o'clock, the House will go into recess until Legislative Council is done. So those who are not on Legislative Council, you're free to go to lunch, be back. What do you think, an hour? Let's go 1, just because we have a long calendar, and if we can get done quickly, I'm chair, I'll move it quickly. So back here at 1 will be a call of the House. And Senate Bill 88 will be heard in Legislative Council as it shows in the calendar. So the House will stand in recess till 1 p.m. today.
you.